When the year began, things weren't looking all that hot for the Republicans in Congress. Yes, they had barely eked out a win in the House of Representatives. But what was it the Greek general Pyrrhus said after another costly win against the Romans? One more victory like that, and I shall be ruined? Well, frankly, it was starting to look a bit that way for the Republicans, especially as they appeared ready to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory with the election of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And oh, didn't the Democrats and their mates in the press gloat throughout that entire process.
Because the Republicans took their new majority and immediately exposed their rifts. They failed to select a Speaker of the House. We know that. That's the first job of Congress on day one. They failed to also make progress on negotiations to get out of this morass.
Let's get right into this with all the drama this week in the House of Kevin McCarthy's 6th failed Speaker votes. What is going on? What is happening there? And what's it like to be in that room?
McCarthy apparently raising his voice in a fiery speech. What more are you hearing?
Yeah, we're hearing things are getting very heated behind closed doors.
Well, turnabout is fair play, and while I must confess to having had some doubts about McCarthy in the past, he seems to know how the game works, and that the Capitol Hill media is absolutely not his friend. And guess what? He's pushing back.
You ask me a question. When I answer it, it's the answer to your question. You don't get to determine whether I answer your question or not, okay? In all respect.
Now, that's McCarthy there mixing it up at a press conference with reporters who were just furious that he fired, oh no, Democrat Adam Schiff from the Intelligence Committee, who we saw just a moment ago yucking it up with the ladies from The View. Now, here he explains why he did that.
What did Adam Schiff do as the chairman of the Intel Committee? What Adam Schiff did, use his power as a chairman and lie to the American public. Even the Inspector General said it. When Devin Nunes put out a memo, he said it was false. When we had a laptop, he used it before an election to be politics and say that it was false and said it was the Russians. When he knew different, when he knew the Intel, if you talk to John Radcliffe, DNI, he came out ahead of time and says there's no intel to prove that, and he used his position as chairman, knowing he has information the rest of America does not, and lied to the American public.
Somebody called 911. I think there's just been a murder. Oh, and McCarthy also gave another Democrat, Eric Swalwell, the flick. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's because Swalwell was the guy who a couple of years ago got rumbled for having a relationship with an alleged Chinese spy who went by the name of Fang Fang. Here you see him giving a certificate of appreciation to Fang Fang. Anyway, he's denied giving her anything else, at least in the National Security Department. And of course, Nancy Pelosi, remember her? Well, at the time, she said she had full confidence that Swalwell had done nothing wrong. Here's McCarthy again, who thought otherwise. And so, too, he tells us, did the FBI.
And if you want to talk about Swalwell, let's talk about Swalwell, because you have not had the briefing that I had. I had the briefing, and Nancy Pelosi had the briefing from the FBI. The FBI never came before this Congress to tell the leadership of this Congress that Eric Swalwell had a problem with a Chinese spy until he served on Intel. So it wasn't just us who were concerned about it. The FBI was concerned about putting a member of Congress on the Intel Committee that has the rights to see things that others don't because of his knowledge and relationship with a Chinese spy.
Now, I gotta say, I think this is great stuff from the new speaker. National security is one of those things that really does need to be above partisan politics. And yet, when the Democrats had control of this very powerful Intelligence Committee, they let it get filled up with hacks like Swalwell and Schiff. And Schiff, by the way, his latest claim to fame, it should be noted, is that his name has shown up all over the Twitter files as the guy who tried to get Big Tech to censor mean tweets, oh no, about Joe Biden. Meanwhile, let's check in on how the White House is reacting to this change of fortune on Capitol Hill. And watch closely. Watch Karine Jean-Pierre and how fast she starts blinking when she is asked whether the likes of Swalwell and Schiff really deserve to be on that Intelligence Committee.
Representative Schiff, Representative Swalwell, and also Representative Omar are, our expertise and bring a lot to the table when it comes to foreign policy and national security. And we'll say this, we'll say that, when it comes to that committee, it should not be politicized.
Did you see that? If her eyelids flapped any faster, she would take off. Now, I'm no body language expert, but I am getting the sense watching that performance that I think even KJP might not have managed to convince herself of this particular set of messages. But anyway, let's go back to the media, which was having such a high old time with what they saw as Republican chaos just a few weeks ago, back when McCarthy was a no-threat hack who was going to spend more time trying to glue his party back together than actually doing anything to push back against the left. Well, guess what? Now they're furious. Here's Vanity Fair, which used to be a fun magazine about celebrities and Eurotrash, but which is now about as much fun as a second-year uni student home for the holidays, ready to ruin Christmas. They wrote, quote, "Indeed, the tit-for-tat against Democrats and the promotion of Green and other extremists is a reflection of what McCarthy had to do to assume the gavel and how much more he'll have to debase himself to maintain it." Oh, please. Swalwell was sleeping with a Chinese spy, guys. Come on. What does it take for a Democrat to lose the support of his confreres in the media? Honestly. Anyway, here's the Washington Post. McCarthy may regret kicking Schiff off the Intelligence Committee. Well, really? Okay, sure, fine. Meanwhile, here's commentator A.B. Stoddard. Quote, "Kevin McCarthy is already a gift to the Democrats." Well, if you say so, but again, let's just remember how well that hubris worked out for you 3 weeks ago. Finally, let's give the last word to Eric Swalwell himself, who has made a vow he'll be back, and told Kevin McCarthy that this town ain't big enough for the both of them.
But we will not be quiet. We're not going away. I think he'll regret giving all three of us more time on our hands. But at the end of the day, our mission now is to restore the credibility and integrity of this institution, of which the Speaker has so gravely smashed and destroyed.
Yeah, sure, mate. Tell it to Fang Fang.